Hey friends, welcome to Living the KG Life, a pixie dust filled podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk all about the Disney Vacation Club. So stick around, it's going to be great. All right, friends, let's hop right in. I am so excited for this new segment we're going to be doing called Welcome Home. And in these episodes, we're going to be talking all about the Disney Vacation Club, or DVC for short. Now, I'm super excited personally because I just recently closed on my very first contract and became a Disney Vacation Club member for the very first time. Now, I say my first contract and for the first time because I have a feeling that this is going to be a very long relationship between me and DVC, and probably won't be my first and only contract. So we'll see how it all goes from here. But since I've closed on my contract, I was super excited. I shared it on my Instagram, and a lot of people had a lot of questions. So we thought this would be a really great way to kind of just do like a 101 episode, give you all the basics. And throughout the podcast, we're actually going to be having a bunch of different DVC members come on, talk about how they use their points, how they schedule their trips, what resorts they like the best, and kind of all the good stuff. So let's hop in and talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about the DVC from the jump. What is it? How does it work? Kind of all those burning questions that you might have. So Disney Vacation Club is basically Disney's version of a timeshare, but they use points to book available rooms instead of having a designated week in a particular unit, things like that. It is a deeded real estate interest that reallocates a certain number of points every year depending on what kind of contract you buy. Now, you purchase a contract with a home resort out of one of, I think, 15 or so resorts, and the price is based on how many points you purchase. So the price per point will vary at each resort. So we'll probably talk about that a lot, price per point or points per night. That'll be a lot of kind of the lingo that we'll use kind of in this intro episode, and then you'll hear it probably a lot in a lot of the Welcome Home episodes coming up. So for example, this is just a hypothetical example with some numbers in it to kind of give you an idea. So let's say you wanted to purchase 100 points at the Old Key West Resort, and the points cost $100 per point. That means that contract would cost $10,000, not including closing costs and things like that. So again, just a hypothetical example, but that's kind of how the points or dollars per point links together. Now, the contract length or the length of the contract also will vary by resort. Now, typically when a new resort opens, all contracts will expire in 50 years, 50. That's a long time. So regardless of when you purchase the contract, the expiration is based on the resort, not your contract or when you purchased it. It's always based on the resort itself. There are 6 that expire in 2042 or 2042, and the rest have different expirations based on when they opened. For example, if you purchased a contract at the Riviera Resort the day they opened, your contract would expire in about 50 years because it's a fairly new resort. But if you purchased a contract at the Boardwalk on the same day, it would still expire in 2042 because that, again, attaches to when the resort was opened, not necessarily when you bought your contract. Now, one of, I would say, the most popular questions that I have gotten so far is, what are points? How do they work? Tell me all about it. So in your contract, you'll have an allotted number of points that refresh or reload every year. And your rooms or the rooms that you book will have a certain point per night value. And you use your points to book your reservations. The resorts will have point charts that show you how much a room will be per night. And the point charts do change every year. So that's something to keep an eye on, especially if you're interested in DVC. If it's something where you go the same time every year, kind of give yourself an idea of roughly what those points could look like, but know that they could potentially flex based on holidays and things like that, different times of year. You'll notice a little bit of fluctuation each year on those point charts. So the point per night values are, like I mentioned, determined by a few different things: by time of year, by room size, and or by view. So in your resort, you'll have a few different options of views, and those obviously will range by resort, where they're located, and things like that. The calendar year is broken down into 7 different travel periods, and more popular times of the year are going to have higher point per night value due to high demand. And then also on the other side, have some of the maybe lower demand will have a lower point per night value. Resorts will have a range of room options as well, or room size. So some will have deluxe studios, 1-bedroom villas, 2-bedroom villas, 3-bedroom grand villas. There's a lot of different options for room size. So to fit you, your family, your friends, whoever it is that you're going to be going with, you'll have lots of options to book for your room. And then the different resorts will have also a different combination of available room sizes as well. So, for example, the Poly only has studios in the 2-bedroom bungalows, but the Grand Floridian has studios, 1-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms, and 3-bedroom grand villas. And that's one of the exciting things we'll get into a little bit later, but is exciting or pretty cool about the DVC program or membership is that you don't have to only stay in your home resort. So let's say you wanted to actually book at a different resort based on the size or even the availability of a particular room size, you can do that. You'll just have a little bit of a different booking window, which we'll get into in a minute. Now, the room view, like I said, can also play a factor into determining the points per night. So some resorts have several different types of views. Some are a little bit more desirable than others. For example, Bay Lake Tower at the Contemporary has a standard view, a lake view, and a theme park view. The standard views will typically be of like the parking lot, and obviously the theme park view is a theme park view, and it is absolutely incredible. And it has a magical view of Magic Kingdom right outside your window. We actually stayed back in September. My brother, sister-in-law, and I stayed at Bay Lake Tower. We had a theme park view. We got to see Happily Ever After from our room. Just being able to wake up and see the castle in the morning, or the glow of the lights at Space Mountain at night. Oh, I cannot rave enough. When we do a resort review, I will definitely talk a little bit more in depth about the Contemporary and Bay Lake Tower, because the theme park view, if you ever get the chance to do it, do it, do it, do it. It was incredible. Now, like we talked about, there's a little bit of difference, or there can be a little bit of a difference between how you use your points and the view. So, for example, if you wanted to book 3 nights at the Poly in a standard view deluxe studio in travel period 1, as of right now, the points per night value is 15 points per night. So you would need 45 points to book the entire reservation. Now, if you wanted to book 3 nights in a theme park view room at Bay Lake Tower in a different travel period, the amount of points you would need to book that reservation would change, again, based on when that travel period is, if the room is available, and we know that a theme park view room is going to be higher points because of that incredible view. So let's talk a little bit more about resorts. So your home resort is where your deeded contract lives, pretty much. So that gives you priority booking 11 months prior to your check-in date. Now, a lot of those really desirable dates and resorts will fill up fast. So this is a huge advantage to be able to book at your home resort. And you'll hear from a lot of different people about doing your research for DVC and what you want to book and how you want to book and things like that. And one of the most important things that I found it both in my research, pretty much from everyone that gave advice on DVC, was to really think about your home resort and where you want to stay, because you'll have that 11-month window to book. So the more time you have, the more likely, fingers crossed, hopefully you'll be able to get the room you want, the date you want, for the length of the trip that you want, things like that. So that 11-month window can be super helpful when you're booking your trip. Now, as I mentioned before, you don't have to only stay at the resort of your home resort. So you can book at any of the other DVC resorts, with a little bit of an asterisk, depending on how you book, or depending on how you buy your contract. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So if you're staying at another resort that's not your home resort, you can book 7 months prior to your check-in date. Now, that's where that home resort kind of advantage, like home field advantage almost, will be helpful. So if it's your home resort, you can book 11 months in advance. If it's not your home resort, you can book 7 months in advance. So let's say you really wanted to book at the Grand Floridian, but you own at Bay Lake Tower. You can only book 7 months in advance. And all those people that own at Grand Floridian, they can book their trip 4 months in advance from you. So they get a little bit of a head start. So really planning and prioritizing. I know we've talked a lot about that on the podcast for just kind of planning trips in general. Prioritizing and planning is so incredibly important. Where you want to stay, when you want to go, so that you can really get the most out of your trip if you have somewhere specific that you want to stay. In the future, we'll definitely talk about some kind of last minute planning DVC trips. I've gotten some of those incredible text messages from people saying, hey, I've got points that I really need to use. Who's down for a trip? So that's something we'll talk about in the future too. But if it's a trip that you know when you want to go, where you want to stay, it's your home resort or it's not your home resort, you can kind of jump on it right in that 7 or 11 month window to make sure you hit it. You hit it just right. Now, as of the time of this recording, there are a bunch of different resorts at Disney World, Disneyland, and then there are kind of some other resorts that are in some different places that you can check out as well. So in Disney World, we have Bay Lake Tower at Disney's Contemporary Resort, Boulder Ridge Villas at Disney's Wilderness Lodge, Copper Creek Villas and Cabins at Disney's Wilderness Lodge, Disney's Animal Kingdom Villas Jumbo House, Disney's Animal Kingdom Villas Kidani Village, Disney's Beach Club Villas, Disney's Boardwalk Villas, Disney's Old Key West Resort, Disney's Polynesian Villas and Bungalows, Disney's Riviera Resort, Disney's Saratoga Springs Resort, and last but certainly not least, the villas at Disney's Grand Floridian Resort. So all of those options are there for you at Disney World. Absolutely incredible. So you've got lots of options of where you can stay depending on kind of the area of the resort that you want to be in. If you want to be closer to Epcot and Hollywood Studios, you want to be closer to Magic Kingdom, you have lots of options. Now at Disneyland, they have the villas at the Disney's Grand Californian Hotel. And then, as I mentioned, there are a few kind of like the other bucket. So you can go to Disney's Hilton Head Island Resort. You can go to Disney's Vero Beach Resort in Florida. And you can go to Disney's Aulani Resort and Spa in Hawaii. And I have heard incredible things about all of these resorts, but especially in that other bucket, I've heard nothing but fantastic, amazing things about Aulani. Now that I'm a DVC member, that is 100% climbing the list of bucket list stays that I really want to do at Disney. So I'm super excited for that one. Another important key to know, we've covered points per night, we've covered where you can stay, we've covered home resorts, we've covered contract lengths. Another big piece for DVC is annual dues. So your annual dues are a fee that you're going to pay every year, and it goes towards property taxes, maintenance, and upkeep. It's also on a price per point basis. So, for example, someone who has 25 points is not going to pay the same as someone with 500 points. And then resorts like Aulani, Vero, and Hilton Head tend to have a little bit of higher annual dues because they're on the beach. They're going to need more maintenance. They're going to need more upkeep, and the building's going to need more maintenance every year. So it's really, again, kind of almost like protecting your investment, taking care of the cast members, all the things that really make your experience as a DVC member special. Now, one of the most important, biggest, most popular questions, aside from how do points work, is how do you buy DVC? So there are two main channels or routes that you can go to purchase your contract. So you can either go what they call direct or resale. Buying direct means you're purchasing directly through Disney, or quote unquote through the mouse. So that means you have either gone on a Disney cruise, or you've seen one of those kiosks in your resort or in the parks and actually purchased right through the Disney Vacation Club. And then resale means that you've purchased through a third-party broker. They are a lot cheaper than buying direct through Disney. That's actually how I purchased my contract, because I knew I had kind of a ballpark idea of how many points I wanted to get. I knew where I wanted to stay. And it was a big first purchase for me. So I really wanted to say, let me see how I can buy in at not a wildly expensive price, see how it goes. And then who knows, down the road, I can always add on through Disney and things like that. Whether you buy direct or resale, you can either finance your contract purchase or you can pay cash. Totally up to you. You do you, boo. Whatever makes the most sense, go for it. Your resale contracts do have some restrictions compared to direct. So you'll hear a little bit of some talk around like blue card versus white card and things like that. So when you buy resale, you don't get a lot of the, special perks that you get if you do buy direct through Disney. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of those benefits and perks that you do get in a minute. One of the other big restrictions that has come with resale contracts that I know I am new to the game, but I have watched more videos and done more research and read more blogs about DVC that I can tell you that a lot of people really don't love this restriction, but new resale contracts cannot book at newest resorts starting with the Riviera Resort. So that means for me, for example, because I purchased my contract resale, I cannot book a stay at the Riviera Resort. And that's going to be the case most likely for all of the other new resorts moving forward. So that's kind of a way that, they're trying to maintain or kind of filter in or funnel through where people are buying their contracts from, which, understandable, but we won't go down that rabbit hole today. Maybe on another episode, we can talk all about that. Now, another piece to consider when you're buying resale is that Disney has what they call right of first refusal. So that means you put in your offer, you're waiting to hear if the seller accepts it or not. Then Disney can come in and say, hey, this contract looks like it's being sold for too little. They can actually swoop in and buy the contract back instead of you, the potential buyer. On their end, that's going to help maintain the value of the contract. So again, I get it, but that's going to be frustrating. I know when I was waiting in my contract period, I was like, please don't buy it back. Please don't buy it back. Please don't buy it back. Because I really just wanted to make sure that I got my first contract and get in there. I was really, really excited. So that's something that, and it sounds like from what people have said, sometimes Disney tends to buy back more often than not, during different times. COVID, I think, was just kind of like a wild time for DVC purchases and sales in general. So that's something to keep in mind too, of, kind of keeping an eye almost like on the market of what Disney's doing, how often are they buying back? Are they buying back in like a certain price? So the folks that you would be buying your resale from will have a pulse on that, so they can kind of give you some of the scoops, some of the information, so you're not totally in the dark, and they'll kind of help guide you in even making your offer so that, you can kind of put in a strong offer and make sure that that you get the contract that you want. Now, I mentioned a little bit about benefits and perks. So these are, again, for most of the time, folks that buy direct through Disney. There are some that will go through direct or resale. And something that's another like big asterisk thing to keep in mind is that the benefits and perks, like anything, are subject to change at any time. So they're not guaranteed in your contract. There's no rule saying that Disney can't change them. They can't take them away. Again, things like COVID happen and lots of things change. So your contract is truly just your points per year. That is the only thing that cannot change. All these other pieces, perks, discounts, extra benefits, opportunities for different things like events, those are all subject to change. But some of the common perks that are available for DVC members is you can get discounts on shopping and dining. They do tend to have special after hours events and cruises and things like that. An annual pass discount as well. Now, one of the things to keep in mind in kind of the when you'll get it or when you won't, or if it's available to you for the direct versus resale when it comes to benefits and perks, is there are some of them that actually are the same or very similar to an annual pass. So if you're going to Disney enough that you become a Disney Vacation Club member, there's a pretty high chance or a pretty high likelihood that you're also an annual pass member, like myself. So when I was, digging around trying to decide, is this the right decision for me? Do I want to go direct? Do I want to go resale? a lot of the benefits, especially during COVID, that were available were really the same as the annual pass, which I already had. So I wasn't really losing anything, and there wasn't anything in particular that was happening right then that I was missing out on. So for example, like after hours events and things like that hadn't come back yet. We still haven't heard much on those for DVC members. There are some things that we hope to have come back, but again, you just never know. So you really want to think about, like, are those perks really worth it? Or is what you get with your annual pass enough to say, I'm going to go resale and actually save a boatload of change instead? That was the, the decision that I went with, and I'm really happy that I did do it. Another perk or benefit that has come up recently, at least, which has been pretty cool, is there are some special preview type events that have come up. So things like with Remy's Ratatouille Adventure at Epcot, there were actual pass holder and DVC member preview events. So you could actually book not really a fast pass for like using some older language, but kind of like a fast pass type experience where because you had an annual pass or DVC membership, you were able to actually get early access and try the ride before it officially opened, which was really cool. A ton of people were posting about it on Instagram and really like kind of putting into the hype, which was super fun. And it's always great to kind of like have a little bit of like a special VIP access. So again, another benefit or perk that like would come and go. Sometimes you might see, sometimes you won't, but pretty cool when you do get them. Now, for me, I was really, really excited to make the leap to buy DVC. I'd been thinking about it for a really, really, really long time. And it's one of those things that obviously it's a very expensive purchase, regardless of if you buy DVC or regardless of if you buy direct or resale, it's going to be expensive. And as everyone that I know has told me, you have to do your research and see what makes the most sense for you. So I know I've mentioned this in other episodes. I will not tell you how to spend your money, if you should definitely buy something, if you should definitely invest in something. I will just try to give you all the information so that you can make an informed decision, or the best informed decision for yourself, for your family, whoever it is that's going to be going in on this DVC with you. But for me, a lot of how I kind of made the decision was I looked at how often I go to Disney, how often I plan to go to Disney or continue to go to Disney. Is it consistent? Is it something that's maybe a little bit more even regular in terms of scheduling and calendars and things like that? And I really said, I'm going to keep an eye on the market. I'm going to keep an eye out for the contract. I decided when I was like, okay, I think I want to do it. I think I'm ready. I picked out what my home resort wanted to be. And I was like, okay, similar to kind of what Meg O'Neill was talking about in our Manifesting Magic episode. I was like, all right, this is what I'm hoping for. If this comes up, it's a sign and it's the right thing for me. I really wanted to be at Bay Lake Tower because Magic Kingdom is just my heart and soul, and I love it so much. And being able to walk from Bay Lake Tower to Magic Kingdom, or hop on the monorail and go to the Poly or the Grand Floridian, yes, I'm in. Let's do it. Hop on the monorail, go to Epcot. And then you have things like Chef Mickey's, one of my favorite restaurants for breakfast. California Grill in the Contemporary, another of my favorite restaurants. The Wave, RIP, which is now Steakhouse 71. I've heard nothing but great things about that. So there was so much accessibility to Bay Lake Tower that I was like, yep, I think that's it. That's where I want to be, at least for this first one. And then we'll see where we go from there. But the time came, like a contract popped up, and I was like, oh, okay, this is it. This is the one I want to get. And I said, okay, so now let's look at the point charts with this contract. Does this make sense for when I would want to go? I have kind of, I would say maybe mentally committed, emotionally committed to doing at least one Run Disney trip a year. And it's probably going to be Princess Weekend. And what I'd like to do is Princess plus one. So either Princess and Wine and Dine, or Princess and this new Springtime Surprise, or Princess and Marathon Weekend. That's kind of going to be my baseline for trips. And then our family, we've said that probably every other year would be a good cadence for us to go with, my parents, brother, sister, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, the kids. when we kind of like how we want to make those like bigger trips happen, it's more likely going to be every other year. So in looking, I was like, okay, if I'm going to go 1 to 2 times a year, a minimum, I can make this work. So that would be, I would say, the first thing to really think about. How often are you going to go? How how many points will you need in order to feel good about that contract and when you're going to go? Because another piece that we actually haven't touched upon yet, but we'll probably do more in depth and kind of like how to use your points type episodes, is you can bank and borrow points as well. So if, for example, like what I mentioned, we're going to do with the family is probably like an every other year type of trip, you can kind of bank and borrow from the previous year and the next year to have a little bit almost kind of like a bank for lack of a better term, or like a little cushion or a little pillow for some extra points so you can stay in a bigger place or you can stay in a different resort that you really want to. So they really do make it pretty easy to give you options of how you want to use the contract, right? So again, it's not 1 week a year at one particular place in one particular unit. You have a lot of flexibility where, when, how you want to stay, and how you want to use your points. So again, to me, that was really a big selling point that I could choose a resort. The contract that I wanted came up, and I know I'm going to use it. I mean, for me, the contract at Bay Lake Tower is going to be until 2060, 2060. I hope to all things holy that I am still going to Disney in 2060. Now, because it's a deeded contract, I could, leave it to someone in a will or something like that, Hopefully we don't get anywhere near that. But there are options for things like that too. Or again, you can always sell it on the resale market if that's something that you decide maybe you're not going to use it as much anymore, or you feel like you're not getting the most out of it anymore. There are lots of options to kind of quote unquote like offload your contract if need be. So to me, it was an investment that I really felt confident in. And I will say that again, that like do your research, make the numbers work, or try to make the numbers work, or make sure the numbers work is probably a better way to put it. Really think about what you want to do, how you're going to use it, when you're going to use it before you jump into something like this. I will say the membership and kind of the community around DVC is really fun. It's really exciting. A lot of people really love it and are really passionate about DVC and about the whole experience and kind of what you get. And I know when I use my points for my very first trip, which is probably going to be, I think, for like the springtime surprise run Disney weekend, just based on the availability between when I bought my contract and kind of how things have been. When I walk in for the first time and they say welcome home, I'm probably going to cry. As you probably have gathered by now, I tend to tear up. I'm a bit of an emotional person. But that kind of feeling that you belong, that you're welcome, that they want you there, and they want you to have that great, magical, fun experience. And it's just a little bit extra, right? Just like a little bit more special because you're a DVC member. And that's something that I'm really excited to be a part of. During that last trip that we did in September, I actually got a button because I knew that I was going to be officially closing on my contract soon. I actually dropped my paperwork off on the way to the airport in the post office. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be staying at Bay Lake Tower this trip. It's just like all coming together. It's all so perfect. And our great friend Jonathan over at Hollywood Studios helped me to put new DVC member on a button. So I got like a nice little commemorative button for myself, as we've talked about in other episodes. Big button person over here, but I knew that I really wanted to kind of like mark it as like a moment, like a memory for myself of my first stay at Bay Lake Tower. Even if it wasn't on my contract, I knew that was something that was going to be really special. I was really, really excited for that. So thank you, Jonathan, for an extra little piece of magic. I am really excited to take all of you along with me on this journey of DVC membership. Hopefully this episode gave you kind of a quick overview, 101, high level, high from the sky view of DVC. Like I said, we're going to be bringing on a lot of different folks who are also DVC members. They'll share their tips and tricks on how they book, how they plan, what they like to use their points for, what they don't like to use their points for. Because there are some things, you can transfer your points and exchange your points and A lot of people, like I said, are very passionate about this, all this kind of stuff. So people will definitely give us their tips and their opinions. And I think just like any other kind of Disney trip, it's always great to just get different perspectives from different people so then you can make the best informed, so you can make the best, most informed decision for you, for your family, for your group, and just make it the most magical as possible. So keep your eye out for any of the episodes labeled Welcome Home. Those are going to be all episodes dedicated to the magic of the Disney Vacation Club. Our new episodes always drop on Mondays, but we have been dropping kind of some bonus episodes. And I think some of the Welcome Home, whether it be a resort review or a dining review, will be some great bonus episodes to keep an eye out for in the future. So stick around, it's going to be great.